Hey you guys, this is the February 2016 Titan War Preliminaries, just showing the BRs, or really just showing the stats so you guys can get a feel for my team, but of course the BRs are just weird now. It's hard to compute because obviously Shock's BR is loaded with more res than the other two, and one, she has better crystals. I think, Skoon and Bwin are terrible about dimensions, or consistently doing dimensions. Shock is more willing to, sort of keep up decent ones, but not fantastic ones. So anyway, Shock has better crystals than them, and so, resistances have a ton of BR in them. God knows why they think that one resistance point is worth 10 BR, but one physical attack or magical attack is worth, I think it's worth a tad more than just one BR. It's like 1.25 BR, but yeah, it's ridiculous how they've done things with the BRs. But anyway, so the team has dropped their kids, so that's why they don't have bigger BRs. Skoon and Shock are edging around 6 million BR, maybe a little bit less, and Bwin's floating around like 5.5 to maybe, if he had, when he has decent dims on me, 5.7, something around there. But of course, I love their tunes, and I love them. They're my good buddies. I think it's a little bit harder for them to feel very encouraged about the game, or there are always moments with Wartune, but I never think I don't think I've seen them as particularly Shock at a make or break moment with the game as much as I've seen them now. I think Bwin will probably cut back the cash that he otherwise has been thinking about. At some point I thought maybe he would make a merge sell. He was like, maybe I'll just use my tax return on a merge self, and I was like, well, power to you. And then Shock, I think, is going to cut back altogether. I don't know if she's going to stick it out through this knighthood update. For her, it's very competitive. I'm talking about this now because I do have the finals footage as well, and I am not actually sure if I'm going to post it. I think Skoon asked me not to, and the other two, I think, were not saying terribly encouraging words about the game throughout the video. Just because it is really, really tough, and I think the prelims video obviously goes a bit better. I'm playing Shock, so she's not there to get too negative on things. Plus, our opponents are just not quite at the same caliber as the ones that we face in finals, and I think it's partly my fault for pushing our BRs so much that we're still in Warlord's Hall for finals. I think they would have had more fun had we played in preliminaries. Had we played in Warriors Hall for finals instead of playing up with the Warlords Hall players, which tend to, most of the teams have somebody who's got knighthood or whatever, and so yeah, so finals didn't go well for us, and so I think I'm going to kind of circle back and talk to them again about whether they or not they're okay with me posting it. But that's still sort of on the fence. But with prelims, we're fine. I think it's really tough for players like Bwin, Skoon, and Shock. Bwin has the smallest budget of the three of them, has the weakest tune of the bunch, and Skoon, at any given time was actually a relatively big casher, but did have a period where he was in a playing lull, not getting a lot of multiplayer dungeons and things in, so his tune took a hit that way. And then Shock somewhere in between as far as caching goes, but has probably stayed more consistently, had big multiplayer rewards through TOK, through playing with me for so long. And so Shock in particular has sustained a period where she plays with me, she plays against these really competitive people, but at the very least can stay alive long enough to support me well and can do things in order to be a really active player that can contribute. I think it's becoming more and more hard, more and more difficult for her to feel that way about competing against these players. Bwin and Skoon are probably a bit more used to getting beat up, and I know Skoon sort of is just so good-natured, so he's the type to just feel like I'm holding you back or whatever. And for me, I'm competitive at the same time. I think a huge part of why I love Wartune so much is the people that I've met through it, who I get to enjoy playing with on a daily basis, and so I don't care really enough about winning big in these tournaments to just not play with my friends. So obviously I'll prioritize playing with them. If they do decide to either quit or really cut back, and we'll have to sort of play it by ear. But we are really at the point where this is the first time among at least this group of really long time players that I've seen this bunch just highly consider either quit caching altogether, or at least quit, or even considering quit playing altogether. So I don't know where we're at with things. You guys generally know how I feel about this patch, but also, and I'm cutting back, but not to the point of just quitting altogether. So we'll see. So it's a little bit grim, but when we do play, we're still trying to have a good time, and actually I think this prelims went quite well. So here we are, and this was one of the first tougher teams up against Christy, who can really hold her own. Seeing her in Warlord's Hall consistently now in Class Wars, and so there we have to go to timer with her. And here we have some familiar faces from, okay, I guess they're a mix. I think of them as Wartune 2 because they're lumped in with Lala server, who is, recently not has had a really big run at some of the cross-server stuff, but previously was very, very dominant server at one point for things like Chaos War and stuff. And and so we have Debowman and Scarface. Those are two biggies, and the other guys. Some nice support. Oh, got a Thor in the mix. So Thor, Odin, Frigga. So covering all the elements. That's actually very nice. I do prefer, wind and water, particularly wind in these situations, but if you have a mix of elements, you're pretty much guaranteed that nobody can protect against all of them very well unless you have the new knighthood talents, and you can maybe buy talent points in order to protect against everything, but otherwise it's very difficult to protect against everything. And I've got Goddess Prosperity in the back, so a couple steals, and then a mix of the elements. So I think that is a very nice setup. Skoon and Bwin with Wind Sylphs. Bwin was playing Skoon at the time and decided that he wanted to play the Dark Sylph on Skoon. I said Wind, but he was like, well, just change it up a little bit. Actually, just works out fine. It didn't seem to make a huge impact whether we used Wind or Dark. And there Bwin saying, good fight, Doberman. And every time that we fight Debowman, I'll be on call with Bwin for all of these, and I will be fighting. And every time we see Debowman, he always calls him Doberman. And I don't know if it's just because he's just being stupid for the sake of just making me laugh. I don't know, but I think it's funny every single time that he calls him Doberman, like a dog, like a Doberman. And there, so obviously he's just in current chat trying to make me giggle. And it works because I was just like, oh, so stupid. But anyway, so we went on timer there. Another part of the challenge of Titan War now is the timer wins are getting more and more difficult. One of the big issues is reduced res. Gathering up crystals is really difficult when you don't have a ton of time for dimensions, and you don't recharge a lot. People think that going into Wild Shop is bound balance, like somehow they just like magically fall from anywhere. They're very easy to obtain if you cache at all, but if you don't cache much at all, you don't obtain bound balance very easily. You get a ton of bound balance from recharging these days if you recharge at the proper times, which you should be very careful when you recharge. But yeah, so getting enough bound balance to really make a go of Wild Shop and get some good crystals is very difficult for most players, and most of them can't do that on a regular basis, and so yeah, that's a huge part of why they're really not dealing much. you know, attack stat wise, there's only so far that they can get. The attack stats aren't increasing the way that the defensive ones are, so people get a lot of the clothing titles, but they don't get a lot of the the mount titles that have the physical and magical attacks. So their HP and their defense are going up from the clothing titles, but their attack stats are not going up because it's very hard to obtain the mounts. So yeah, a lot of challenges there for the light to medium cacher, which is pretty much all of my team. And we're up against Wartune, Poison Arrow, Laser, and Ice. All very sweet and committed viewers of the Dolly Games blog and channel and stuff, and also very good players. These guys really stick at it, and I think their fourth is, I have seen Laser before, but their fourth sometimes wavers, but for sure Wartune, Poison Arrow, and Ice always seem to be in a group together in Titan War and as a team in things like Chaos War, and they've had an enormous amount of success and really been making their way up. One of those teams that just always seems to be making steady progress. They have a nice setup there with Odins and everything. I'm wondering if I'm gonna be seeing knighthood on any of them anytime soon. Speaking of knighthood, this might be, I'm just thinking back, did I see any knighthood skills before this? But Buckaz clearly does have knighthood there. God, what is the name of that skill? Still trying to familiarize with some of the knighthood stuff. You know, he's not dealing too much here with the knighthood skills, and that might either be because they're low level or because he's not as, you know, doesn't have as high of stats as some of the other players who have knighthood skills. There are people with knighthood who can use one of the knighthood Delphics and literally just wipe out our entire team except for myself, and wipe out huge portions of my HP with just one class skill. So yeah, it's really dangerous stuff. But here we're faring just fine. I did keep Panda on, you know, keep my U-Demon on for preliminaries and finals. I do drop him because I was concerned more about the timer wins. But here I knew our opponents wouldn't be quite as rough, so I wanted to try it with Panda. And also, you know, I was playing Shaka myself, and when I was looking at the skills, I was like, I don't really know, you know, where I'm working a Centauria into the mix, and so I just decided to have Panda do the Centauria, and the Kid Centauria is actually, once it's at level 5, is actually better than the Mage one. So I didn't put any other active skills on him, just the Centauria, and well, I have 2 of the Delphics on there, but Centauri is the only one that is one of the like automatically used skills, not one of the ones that where I have to call it. Oh, Zipper's up but dead, and so I managed to win there in time. We have Nuva, Medcelanian? Some of these names are terribly difficult. Also Sir Canada and Electric. All familiar faces. Well, maybe Electric? Not sure. Take a peek at how she fares here. But the other three quite strong. Particularly Nuva and Med. Sir Canada up there, but maybe, you know, won't survive quite as long. So other than Tabone Man, who, you know, always jokes about as Doberman, another one that he always seems to have a good time with is Sir Canada, so I don't know when he's going to start making Canada jokes, but they will begin at some point. To get one AoE out. These guys hitting really pretty hard, even against me. Lots of Friggas and Windsills, so very typical of Titan War these days. Buoyant and Schoon are out. And Schoon and Buoyant, I mean, survival-wise, are actually not that much. That's not much worse than Shock. One thing that Shock does have going for her is obviously our ring, so I'm able to heal her a little bit, and support-wise, it just works out a little bit better for her. How is she gonna make it to timer? Not quite. But I don't get another AoE out. Yeah, so I mean we're taking quite a bit of damage there, and I was not dealing a whole lot, so so they take the timer win there. Here, Hot One, beautiful bot. So for sure, I suspect that Hot One has knighthood, and he does. It doesn't look like Lance, beautiful, or no, Artemis doesn't either. I see 2 Friggas, an Odin, and 1 Hecate. You know, I don't think Hecate is such a bad idea in here either. I mean, people really do protect against Odin, though. So they're, for sure, you know, you're not going to get a really big elemental advantage with Dark Pets. But I don't think it's as bad of an idea as it has been previously, just because everybody protects against water and wind now. And so I think the resistances are spread out a lot more these days. And so all of the elements are sort of options now, whereas before, I mean, bringing a Dark Pet here was very iffy, in my opinion. So my HP looks reasonable, you know, when I'm here because I'm potted and everything, but actually this is, you know, my potted HP here is probably actually close or less than what my unpotted HP is when I have my red Hecate on, and part of that is the fact that I have my nice red gear and all that on my Hecate, so I would like to be able to work up my one merge sylph into a piece of into a red sylph that I can put red gear onto, and so after this video I will have one finally taking Freya into a Frigga, so refining her, and that's very nice. I was able to get some emblems from one of the events. Go for the stun, nothing. Stuns, you know, the single stun here, I just haven't had an enormous amount of success with it in Titan War. I did try using Delphic Hell Thunder here, which I've been using in TOK a lot lately, and it's been going well. There we do manage the timer win, maybe because they had all those kids. You get to see Camtasia a little bit on the bottom right, sorry about that. I don't know, sometimes when I dual box, I just end up fumbling around on which tab I'm on. And so yeah, I've had fun with Delphic Hell Thunder in TOK lately. It's been working out really well. I just get really aggressive at the beginning. I end up bringing Hercules. I just use Rain of Fire, Delphic Hell Thunder, and actually the other front row, Delphic like Thunder Frenzy or something like that. So I bring out all these mage skills that I've never really used before. Like I think I've used the Mage Delphics more in the past like 10 days than I have in like the previous 3 years that I've played Wartune. So I decided to try them out here in Titan War, and they work out fine. I wouldn't say it was anything special. Sometimes because of the mage talents, you do sort of randomly spawn a shield on one of the teammates. And there is a chance to stun, and it's an AoE, so there's a chance to stun 8 players at some point. But the stun, the rate is not very good. Sort of like that Archer Delphic that has a chance to stun. The stun rate is really horrid. But I mean, it's the stun rate is so bad when everybody has 20,000 influence that that I don't think it's that much worse. So here, faring pretty well against these guys, getting some nice damage, able to take him out. I was a little bit surprised. Bosco, at least at any given time, I thought was pretty hefty. Here I got Yuva's bunch again, and so hopefully this one goes a little bit better than previously. I think it does. They have one kid, so it's not super easy to get the timer win against them. Avoid making Canada comments again. And because he got beaten up by Canada before, I think we fare a little bit better against this team this time around. Get a bit more aggressive. Even like a good chaos here or there, you know, we got some chaoses in the mix, really does help and can turn the tides pretty nicely against two teams that are relatively even or close to being even. You can just sort of turn things around well if the chaoses are just in your favor. They have a couple of Friggas in the mix, so that's always tough to deal with. But yes, I was saying, if he, ripping on Canada, because no American likes losing to Canada. The only thing where we sort of sit there and take it is maybe hockey, but even then we're a little bit bitter. Like, even when an American team wins the Stanley Cup, you're like, you look at the winning team, and you're like, oh, half of them are actually from Canada. Got my little shield going. Team's looking pretty good this time around. And at least one mage stunned, so that is helpful. Oh, and I managed to take him out. So just Nuva in the mix, but that is not a trivial person to beat within the allotted time, so we're probably going to go to timer. He's got a shield going, he's got Frigga, so there's potentially another heal. Well, no, he's pretty far out from Sylphing. And I say our country's hat. Our icy little hat on top of America. It's just Canada. Really, really big hat actually, for that matter. If they're our hat, they're like I don't know. I can't think of a hat where it's bigger than the human. I guess. Well, you know, maybe the U.S. is the head, and then Canada's the hat, and then Mexico, I don't know, is our beard. Well, okay, now we're getting totally off topic. Oh, here's Chile beating the living crap out of us, so should not miss the carnage. So I get that big Delphic out, luckily not chaosed or anything, but unfortunately am just a hair from missing, not quite enough to kill all the kids, and so the kid Delphics are out and they're healed. And it looks like they got a heal before the kid Delphics went out, so maybe that was some drunk getting a BL out or something. But yeah, due to Chile's insane knighthood skills, and several of them are AoEs, my whole team is dead before we can even get into Sylph mode. So that's fantastic. And yeah, it just shows how insanely OP the knighthood stuff can get. For these bigger, for some of the players who are sort of like on the cusp of getting into Warlord's Hall, sort of that BR, they're not going to be as ridiculous as Knighthood players. But these top people like Chile, like B, and like Enchantress or Trinity or anybody, or Cypress, having Knighthood is just, it's crazy. They push for Knighthood, they get tons of tattoo stats, they get into Knighthood, they have these ridiculous skills, and then they also have the even more ridiculous talents, and they have the Bound Balance to pay for a lot of them. So yeah, it's very, very difficult to deal with, and we just got absolutely wiped out. And I said cleaning house there, I was referring to the test server, because I do have my, actually I wasn't even playing at the time, my friend was boxing my test server tune, but for finals I just sort of had it sitting there for a while, and not really doing anything, and so, I won Titan War on the test server very easily with my group there, but here it's a completely different story. Also, on the test server, there aren't even like 16 teams for Titan Wars, so we're just anybody who participates will get into Warlords Hall, which is sort of funny because the test server doesn't have any cross servers. It's just a single server, and all of the stuff just is competed through this one server. Here up against Muzen Dreamy. Name that I always have trouble with because it just has too many consonants, and Big Bailey. The knight's getting hurt pretty early. Trying to get a heal from Shock. Don't quite make it. These guys really quite tough. Dreamy always sort of up there, a little bit up and down, since his prime days as one of the very, very top archers that won Class Wars, and but Muzen has really made his way up among the knights. It's very, very threatening, and everybody else sort of hangs on quite well. Big Bailey also getting up there. Now getting into our second to last fight for prelims, up against Saint. Saint always confuses me because his archer kid is named Robin, and of course every time I see that name, I think I'm up against Bird or my guildies group, and I'm like, why are there so many kids over there? They always drop some of the kids, and anyway, it's not them. So these are like Kabam 1 group, so Saint, Curiel, Soul Ripper, and Islet. We were actually supposed to not guild merge, server merge with these guys, and then something weird happened, and our merge got canceled. So these could have been my server mates, and instead we got merged with much younger servers. So that's a different mix, you know. The people from Kabam 18 and now sort of Kabam 21 still remain really the longest time players on my server. I felt sort of bad for them because we got a merge before them, and they were the first, the oldest Kabam server, and they didn't have a merge yet. But I think they eventually did get a merge, and so that's very good. Having healthy server merges is really important to the game, but really for the game, it's all about money. If a server isn't recharging a lot and not making them a lot of money, they'll merge it. Otherwise, my impression is like once they start losing money on it, then they start thinking about merges. All about the money. And here we are, last round. Very, very tough fight. Up against Big Bailey, Dreamy, Muzen, and person whose name just has so many consonants that I don't know what to do with myself. So, if we can pronounce it. I mean, I don't even have like an educated guess at like what language this could be, if it stands for something, how I could rearrange the letters in such a way that it would be able to be something I could pronounce. No, just nothing. CK. I mean, that's easy for me, but obviously incorrect. Okay, anyway, into the fight. Having rather a big bit of trouble. These guys are hitting quite hard. Don't see anything knighthood related, I don't think, though I wasn't paying super attention during the class mode skills. Somebody with a knight kid, and that the knight Delphic, once in a while, that knight Delphic will actually stun me, and I'm amazed, and think it's weird, but yeah. Oh, I see a passive on me that looks unfamiliar, so I think somebody has knighthood. Not surprised. Maybe Muzen, he seems to be the one cashing up the most out of the bunch. At least of recent times. You know, Dreamy was definitely top archer once upon a time, winning class wars and things. But yeah, very, very tough bunch to beat. Shock holding up okay, not sure if we can make it to timer though. If we do, we're struggling quite a bit as far as damage goes. Oh, for a moment I thought I was the one that was chaos. Maybe I was. No, Shock's the one chaosed. Alright, once in a while, usually I can keep up with my own dual boxing just fine, but once in a while it'd be tough. I'm gonna get the buffs mixed up. Oh, so actually, I think, well, that must be an archer thing. So actually, Dreamy must have knighthood. But there we are. We finish up 12-3 with 3,645 points. So prelims went quite well, but finals was a total just blowout. And I wouldn't say that we played badly. It's just that the other teams were so OP. We did have a lot of fights go to timer, and we lost them actually again because I'm really the only person who can deal a significant amount of damage against these very, very top teams, and I was being kept from dealing a lot of damage, trying to support the team in heals and all that stuff. And if I don't do those things, then I end up just dying, and we don't even go to timer. So really, it was necessary. But anyway, so we went 2-14 in finals and ended up placing 14th. I have no problem showing that video, honestly. I was still considering it at the beginning of this video, as I started going through this and thinking about my friends again and all of that. I think Scoon genuinely asked me to not show the vid and or not upload it, and I think, you know, Bwin was fine. I mean, he wasn't super happy about it, but he was fine. But Shock, I think, was just not having it, and I think some of the chat in there is probably, you know, I don't want to have to go through and edit out a lot of the things that were being said. But, you know, I try and keep things positive, and I'm not sure, just considering all the things that my teammates were saying during everything, that I can really edit around that or try and keep it light. And so really out of respect for them, and you know, I have all sorts of problems with the game, but I still want to try and at least keep my end of things relatively positive, put things into perspective and everything. And so I think I'm just going to skip over finals this month. Possibly we'll see some footage from Asher and Lil Bish and them, and I think they have some footage, so if they give that to me, I will comment on their video, so we'll still be able to see the finals from their perspective, which is nice. They did end up winning, so might be able to see it from their view, but at least as far as my footage goes, I think I'm gonna skip over that this month. So sorry about that, you guys, but my friends are a little bit more important and how they feel about things, so I want to respect that as much as I can. So thanks for watching, you guys. Take care and have a very good day.